We've had rain overnight. I see that Morris and Stripe came out from under the tarp, under the wood pile over there where the heating pad is. It's pretty warm here though because of the rain, so I don't know that they were actually in the doghouse on the heating pad. Doesn't matter one way or the other. Hello.
Kind of a gloomy end of the year. 2020 is about right.
Yeah, more rain coming, but not for a bit. But I think it's going to be wet and cloudy all day, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bummer.
Yep. Temperature-wise, it would have been a great year to go see the acorn drop.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been cold tonight.
It wouldn't have been cold, but you would have been probably wet. That's how it is in North Carolina winter. When it's warm, it's wet, and when it's cold, it's dry.
Yeah.
That's why we don't get any snow. At least here in central North Carolina.
Hey, it's wet.
No Legos.
No Legos, no nothing, just a skinny little newspaper.
I do have one Lego package I would sure like to come sooner than later. And it's late.
Amazon package that's supposed to be here by the 30th. Ain't here yet.
Must have come from the Postal Service instead of the Prime delivery van.
That must be the problem. Yeah.
Well, this is the kind of day we have here today. Warm, but raining. It's in the upper 50s. Don has looked at the radar and decided he's going to stay put and not run today. I totally support that. It would be a little miserable getting that wet at 50-something degrees. So the rain's been coming and going. How's my buddy over here? You doing good today on your heating pad? You a happy kitty? He often doesn't like me to point the camera at him because, you know, he's not sure what to make of it. But I am getting ready to go for my afternoon drive in Ruby to play Pokemon Go and get out and see, you know, what's going on. And I really enjoy doing that each day for a few minutes at least. I have pulled a bunch of statistics from TeslaModelXJourney for both Jules and Ruby to do a year-end review. I've got Don assigned some spreadsheet stuff. He usually does the spreadsheets while I do the TeslaModelXJourney. So he's on that, and like usual, we will spend part of our New Year's Eve talking Tesla numbers. I think you can see that Stripe is up there underneath the tarp. I'm sure him and Morris will be looking for some more food sooner than later since it's about 3:30 in the afternoon. Tux and the Gray Girls are all up here near the house, some on the platform and some in the hutch in the catio, which we also call the cat hotel. There's Tux. Hey, bud. Don pulled Ruby out for me. He's getting a few things we need from the garage refrigerator also. He likes to run those errands for me. I cook. He goes back and forth. He's trying to make sure I don't fall on my tuchus on the wet boardwalk. Good afternoon, Ruby. It's too wet, but thanks for bringing me your phone. I can double play that way.
Yes, right.
Go get dry. Thank you. Love you. And watching yesterday's video, 1295, I just want to say that, you know, I really probably ought to do more to, I was trying to advance the song, do more to pay attention to what song is, what image is over there. I don't know. I do like Lady Gaga radio, so that's, you know, on TuneIn, I think, or what do you call it, the in-car streaming. It, you know, it'll play me a lot of her stuff, and then other people that are similar types of music to hers. And I was looking at the Santa Sleigh stuff and going, yeah, that Keisha song is probably not what I would have chose to put. You know, if I had played Frosty the Snowman and had a picture of Frosty over there, that would have been perfect for yesterday's Santa sleigh video, right? And the other thing I want to say is this is basically my view when, a lot of times with the wheel, you know, blocking part of the driver instrument cluster, which is all vehicles, But I want to say that it's just working out for me that I can never see what gear I'm in without having to really like come over here and try to see what gear I'm in. Which my foot's on the brake, as you can tell, and I've, you know, got the D up there now, but I'm still missing that it's not over here where it used to be, because I'm finding I'm having to like really work to double check the gear. If I don't remember if I've sat someplace for a minute, did I put it in park? Am I still in drive? I can see if hold is on, because that's over top of the, let me press in. That's over top of the energy readout there, the little H. But yeah. I've been doing a little extra gameplay. There's a squirrel there. Including battling, raiding, trading with some other players. It's just ugly out there. There's nothing to show you today. There's no people around over here at South Park. It's a day. I guess this little squirrel over here at this tree's got some nuts on it and he's enjoying himself. You can kind of see the heat rising off the ground over there. The ball field 3, the high school ball field, it's looking pretty wet. I'm about to head to the house. I need to get home before it starts to get dark so I can see to take care of my kitties. And yeah, that was Ruby in hold mode putting herself in park because I sat here for 15 minutes again. I'm working on cheesecake for tomorrow's dessert, ice cream for tonight because we got to have something special on New Year's Eve. And Don goes out and gets the mail in the rain. Yeah. And it's a red package, yeah, but.
Oh, I said, finally, we've got one of those special Amazon boxes that we've been hearing so much about that we haven't gotten a single one.
Right, we never got the pumpkin box at Halloween.
But in actuality, it's an ad for a Hyundai.
Yeah, it sure is. It's you scan the QR code for your chance to win the redesigned Santa Fe.
Yeah. They couldn't have done the Hyundai, what is it, Kona? Or Nero?
EV, yeah, right. Kona EV, yeah.
Wouldn't do that one, I guess.
Yeah, apparently not.
Apparently not.
That's okay. The cats don't know the difference. Cardboard's cardboard, baby.
Cardboard's cardboard, that's right. So we'll put it down here for the cats.
So, it's kind of tradition for Don and I to spend some time on New Year's Eve, at least since Ruby came along in 2017, giving a year-end summary of driving habits and electrical usage during the year. You know, EV stuff, a little year in review. And this year's no exception. We started this tradition, obviously, in 2017 when we bought Ruby. We sort of tend to do a review on the 1-year anniversary of delivery day and on the end of the year because they both sort of make sense. This year's a little different for us for 2 reasons. One, our driving habits radically changed thanks to COVID-19. And we now have 2 Teslas instead of 1 since, what did Don tell me, July 19th. So, you know, we've got numbers to report on both cars. Don's in the house finishing up the electricity part of the program. I'm going to go over the TeslaFi numbers. That's kind of tradition too. And he's trying to sort out what makes sense and what we can and can't show you as far as splitting up what's going on with the 2 cars. But the biggest story of all really is we just didn't drive that far in 2020. So I'm going to start with Jules and doing things a little different here. I was in TeslaFi earlier today and I did a bunch of screen captures versus going through the TeslaFi screens and waiting for the charts to draw because sometimes they can take a while. I don't know if I'm going to like doing it this way better or not, but this is what I've got for this year. This is how I'm going to try to show it. So top 10 destinations, driving destinations for Jules. Now for Jules and Ruby, this is a lifetime of car chart. TeslaFi doesn't give me a way to split it out. Okay, so but Jules, it makes sense because we've only had Jules for a fraction of a year, and so this would be the chart if we could just show 2020 numbers. But for the Ruby, it's going to be, you know, since we got her. So obviously the ending address is home is the most frequent place we end up, right? That makes total sense, I think, for almost any car. And because probably Kyle borrowed Jules and was up at the track and in and out of the track a few times, the track showed up as Jules's second highest ending address location. Walmart, Donna's always dropping me off at Walmart to go in and run errands. Whole Foods Market when Don's with me. The Tesla Service Center, we were there obviously a few times. The Home Depot, the ABC store. But that's not because of buying a bunch of alcohol. That's really because when we went for a bunch of those nightly COVID drives, like just to get out of the house in the March or I guess we were in Ruby then, but later on in the year in Jules, we turn around up there a lot and we stop in there a lot to film. It's a good spot just on the north side of town to pull in and do stuff. Guardian Angel Thrift, no surprise there. That would be the Fuquay location. Harbor Freight, this would be the one down in Sanford. And Smithfield's Chicken and Barbecue. That's kind of because that's where we go to park while we eat our Dairy Queen, because there's a Pokestop there and I can play Pokemon and eat ice cream at the same time. Okay, you get the gist there. And the top 10 longest drives, and I don't find this to be a surprise either, because you know, you're doing probably two plus hour stretches in our case, 90 minutes at least when we're in between superchargers. You know, we like to charge a little and stop just for a little bit versus stop infrequently and charge for a long time. We try to follow Kyle's model for a little bit different reason than Kyle. Kyle's doing it because it gets him from point A to point B the fastest. We're doing it more because we just really like to get out and use the facilities, get something to drink, stretch our legs, check out the supercharger we hadn't been to before to film, you know, that kind of stuff. But all of these are pretty much between charging facilities. And a lot of these on here are from when Don went to Cape Girardeau for Jack's funeral. So there is some real mileage here. Ruby still hasn't been in the state of Tennessee, but Jules has. And, you know, we had Don had a 204 mile, 180 mile, 130. But normally when we're just stopping places, it's, you know, Greensboro to home is 93 miles. And that's usually about our longest stretch that we do. And here's the lifetime map for Jules. Again, Jules, it is just 2020. Some interesting stuff that TeslaFi puts on the chart with the map. The number of drives was 321. Now it counts everything, like if you move 3 parking spaces over, but you were in park and then you went back and drive, well, that's another drive, right? So I don't know that I put a whole lot of stock in that number, except to say that we did do quite a few drives in Jules, even though we only had her for a little less than half a year. Miles driven, 5,559. Watt hours per mile at 293, which on the performance with those tires we're pretty impressed with, although I was noticing the efficiency, 87.44%, is probably not what Don would hope for. He'd hope for something in the 90s. That's not bad. I'm not saying it's bad. It could be better, right? But we're used to Model X watt hours per mile. Ruby's average, you'll see, is at 363 watt hours per mile, and she's been in the 360 range certainly well in 2018 when we really started paying attention. So to us, 293 watt hours per mile seems fantastic efficiency. 1,630 kilowatt hours used according to TeslaFi. Average temp 73 degrees. It says it costs us $130. These are, of course, TeslaFi averages, and Don will have a little more specifics. 5 days, 9 hours, and 45 minutes of driving time, which is not that much. But again, got Jules in July, COVID. And you can see here the way this map works is the darkest areas are the spots near your house where you're driving those roads all the time. And you frequent them a lot, and the more you drive them, the darker they get on this map. The roads he was only on one time, like this loop here on 81 north to come home, and this loop here through Hickory and Asheville, which was on the way out to Jack's funeral. Very light gray because he was only on those roads the one time. But Virginia, Tennessee, Missouri, I think Illinois for like a minute and a half, but no South Carolina yet. So we can have goals for 2021 with Jules, right? Here are Jules's AC charging total. So these is charging, includes at home and any place else that isn't a Tesla supercharger. Now, typically when you look at Ruby's chart, you'll see almost all of our charging is either home or supercharger, but we did plug in at Rocky Mount Mills destination charger. Apparently this year, I'm trying to remember when that was. Up at the track, of course, and this Bisco Park charge point charger is when we went over on the Morrow Mountain trip, just because we wanted to see if the charger was working and do a little practice on plugging into a charge point charger. So obviously, number of charges at home was 87. Don has not necessarily charged every night, because he's not putting that many miles on the car. Right now during COVID, he's only charging to 50%, and just a handful of other charges at other non-supercharger charging locations. But because of his trip to Missouri, there are quite a few supercharger stops. 20 charges at 14 locations. So Don and Jules have been to 14 supercharger locations this year. And, so that's pretty good considering we had the one longish road trip, multi-day road trip there in Jules. I love the software update story because free stuff from Tesla continuing to refine and add function, how smooth it is. It's a good story. I mean, it really is a good story. And Teslafy will let you know where you are in line on a certain update, sort of within the fleet. It'll let you see how many cars, and in the fleet here, we mean just other owners that have their car. They've bought the third party access to Teslafy data logging for their car. We've had this hooked up to Ruby pretty much since a couple days after we brought her home, and we hooked it up to Jules. Well, we tried in the Tesla lot before we even left after our delivery, but got it going that day. We find it to be really useful information. But here, you can see 48.26 rolling out. The big day was 12/26. A few people got it on Christmas, but a lot of people got it on the day after Christmas, on Boxing Day, and then the day after that. And then it sort of trickled down now, because now we're rolling out 48.30, at least to Model Ys. And I believe on this chart, you can tell it that you only want to know about a Y or an X, or you can say all. There are some other options there. And specifically for Jules, there were 19 software updates in 2019. There were so many that I could not fit them all on the screen. I guess this is close, but this was not 100% all of them. So at least I don't think it was. It's close. But anyway, 19 software updates in a fraction of a year. Yeah, this is from July the 19th. So I'm thinking for the chart for Jules, I apologize. It is all 19 of them without me taking the time to count. And, you usually get one or two a month. There's no guarantees how often they're going to come. We look at Ruby's chart. There's a little gap where we like didn't get any for a little while, and then other times where you're getting like 4 or 5 really close together for a major update where they ship some additional bug fixes or improvements. Most of the time you get the bug fixes and you don't know what they're for. They just come out occasionally, like once or twice, I think during our ownership, it's been, oh, come on, we need that update because we need the fix for that. Never anything that kept us from driving the car, of course, but just a little tiny something that, you know, like one time the charge port door wasn't opening from the wand. You could press on it and open it. And, you know, that's been resolved. And that was on Ruby, not on Jules. The temperature efficiency chart is very similar for both Ruby and Jules. As you'll see, Jules is very efficient. I'm just trying to miles recorded versus efficiency. And, you know, Jules is most efficient between 75 and 80, but quite efficient from 70 to 75 and 80 to 85 or 85 to 90. So basically what this shows is that the car is efficient when it's not too cold. Okay. So we know that the car is really efficient in the sweet spot here. And for Jules, it was 75 to 80. I think for Ruby, it's in the same range, but it might be just a smidge colder. And of course you can do by date on this chart, and you can also say I only care about drives over N number of miles. In this case, I took the default of 10, but you could say 30 or 100 or whatever, because like for us, when we come up our drive, if I were to just take Ruby to the mailbox or Jules and go down and then up the driveway for that less than a mile drive, and the hill, that's going to be an inefficient drive every time, no matter what, because of that hill. And it doesn't really tell much of a story for that short trip. So something over 10 or more is probably the way to go with this chart if you're looking at it. And I just wanted to show one sample month for December, and it's probably pretty good, pretty accurate. There were 29 drives, but let's see, there's only the days that are blank, we didn't drive Jules. Okay, so you can see that there are multiple days each week where Dawn doesn't drive Jules, and that's because I'm out by myself and I take Ruby because I prefer to drive Ruby. I can drive Jules if I want to. Dawn usually pulls Ruby out for me. If I said, hey, I want to drive Jules today, pull Jules out for me, he would do that. He wouldn't bat an eyelash. But I just prefer Ruby. Ruby's my car. I'm used to everything in that car. I prefer the Model X. Don't hit me. But that's okay, because Dawn probably prefers driving the Model Y. So, you know, it's a good trade-off, and we each have the car that works for us. But you can see lots of gaps. If you look at Ruby's December, it's much more filled in. And generally in any given month, Ruby's is going to be much more filled in because I'm out and about most days. I like to go out just to go out. Don likes to go out to do specific things, and he enjoys going places with me. So usually, sometimes on the weekend, you'll see, you know, now Ruby doesn't have a drive entry maybe for Saturday, and that's because we took Jules somewhere and I didn't actually go out that day. So that concludes the summary for Jules. I think that worked okay, just pulling up the pictures versus navigating the TeslaFi screens. I mean, I know where everything is in TeslaFi, but sometimes those charts do take a little bit to run, and probably if multiple people are trying to run year-end stuff, that probably slows it down a little bit. So I'm going to pause here, take a sip of water, and I'll be right back with Ruby's charging numbers, year-end numbers. All right, it's time to talk about Ruby's 2020 numbers from TeslaFi, both some that are lifetime numbers and some that are just 2020 numbers, and a few that are, I'll have both to be able to show you. Pretty similar to Jules, but some similarities and some differences. So the top 10 driving destinations will be no surprise to anyone that watches the channel. Home, Johnny's school, Taekwondo, that's going to be mostly from prior to 2020. Walmart, Fuquay, Guardian Angel, Fuquay, Whole Foods in Cary, the Environmental Park, which I'm sure that one's bumped up since last year because, you know, I hung out down there in Ruby a lot because of COVID. The Guardian Angel Apex, South Park Splash Pad, and Treasure in Christ Church, which is the church across the street from Johnny's school. That one is still probably mostly still on the list from 2019 and not so much 2020. But some of these are definitely shopping, places we have to go, and places I go to play Pokemon Go. Don thinks it's cute. The Teslafy has the icon for Pokemon Go, just so you know. Longest drives for Ruby. Again, Teslafy doesn't let me split this one out for just 2020. So this is going to be a lifetime chart. I'm looking in here to see if any of these are this year, and they aren't. So they were all from 18 and 19, and there's one in there from 17, and that's just simply going to be because of COVID. Obviously, there were activities we had planned to do, like going back to the Blue Ridge Parkway Drive in September of this year that had to be canceled for COVID. So we did not add any super long drives. Probably going to Morrow Mountain that day was probably the farthest away we were with Ruby in 2020. Here's Ruby's lifetime map, and you know, I don't think we added any states this year. Virginia, South Carolina, and just shy of Tennessee. I mean, by like 7 miles last year in 2019. So Ruby is up at 9,678 drives. And again, the drive is anything from you moved a few feet to hundreds of miles, right? But we're getting close to 10,000 drives and close to 75,000 miles. So I'll probably do a little update video to let you guys know when we reach either of those milestones with Ruby, because it may be that coming up in January or February. Watt hours per mile, as I told you in the prior video, is 363, 87% efficiency, and 123 days, 17 hours, and 17 minutes total time driving in Ruby, which for Ruby, it's probably, I've been in the car more than that since I play Pogo, and I tend to sit around town at spots, battling gyms and, you know, doing other Pokemon Go game related activities, waiting for Dawn up at South Park to run by, that kind of thing, just kind of hanging out in my car. But that gives you a little bit of an idea. And just like I said with Jules, places we've only been to one time, like this was the day we went on the Amazon factory tour up in Chester, Virginia, in a light gray, because we've only been on that road one time. And where we are all the time, it's really filled in. The more you're over the roads, the darker that area becomes. And this is a lifetime AC charging totals. I do have just a 2020 chart coming up. And so home, the track, I mean, we started out the year, well, at the track on New Year's Eve last year. We were actually up at the track with Kyle having a good time. The Tesla Service Center, where Kyle used to live, well, one of the places he used to live. The charge point at Wake Tech, we remember that day, right? Smithville's Chicken and Barbecue down in Dunn. I took a little drive down there. I meant to make this bigger just so that I could make use of that supercharger and make video for you guys and let Smithfields know we appreciated the charger being down there. That's not too far from Campbell University. Lockhart Power, which was a 2019 charge, and Auto Park Jaguar when we went to do the test drive of the iPace. So these are not labeled as to what year they occurred. Of course, if we were to click in TeslaFi, we would be able to see additional data. The Wake Tech one and the Dunn location, I know those are new, but look at how many non-home charges we did that were non-supercharger charges any lifetime, and the answer is not many, because we plug Ruby in most nights and charge, and we almost always do all our charging at home. Only if we really travel, let's say over 175 to 200 miles away from the house, or we leave on a lower state of charge, which now we're not so careful about charging the car up like we left for Rocky Mount Supercharger with less than a 50% charge on Jules a couple days ago, and didn't think twice about it. But still, the story is the car charges while you're sleeping. You hardly even know it's doing anything, and you get up in the morning and you're rarely, shouldn't be ever met with, I've got to go put gas in the car or go charge the car. Right? It's happened to me about one day a year where I would end up at the supercharger in Raleigh because one of us didn't plug Ruby in. Always me, but Don didn't catch me forgetting. And, it's such a hardship to go to Starbucks and walk around Target for a few minutes while I charged. So here is a lifetime supercharging totals, and Rocky Mount and Greensboro, and the one in Raleigh. No surprise there that these are up at the top of Ruby's destinations, followed closely by other superchargers in the state: Burlington, Hickory, Asheville, Charlotte, Fayetteville, Cary, and Mount Airy. Not a lot of supercharging. Lifetime for Ruby is 66 charges at 16 different locations, and that's in 3.5 years. So that's not a lot of supercharging. And every time, if you have to move while you're at the supercharger from one pedestal to another to try to get better charging speed, or for whatever reason, that counts as 2 supercharges. And there are sometimes in here, so it's probably not exactly 66 real supercharging sessions. But there are a few times in there where we just move pedestals and continue to charge on the same day and at the same location. But here's a chart that shows the AC charging and the supercharging totals for just 2020. And like I said, almost all of the AC charging, non-supercharger charging is done at home. There were only 2 times in the past year where I plugged Ruby in that wasn't at home and wasn't at a supercharger. And there were only 4 supercharger chargers this year, which is like next to nothing, right? So 2 hours and 30 minutes total. And Rocky Mountain, a few times coming and going from the tracker, meeting Kyle. And the Cary supercharger, I think if I had to look that one up, that was early on in the year prior to COVID, and we went there to meet up for a little bit at the new Cary supercharger. And then, of course, whenever Tesla has the car, they typically plug in there, and they do have a supercharger now. So that is all a good story. And this fleet software update chart for Ruby should look very similar to the one for Jules. Again, it was it has S and X, but I don't see Y and 3 on here. I don't think I restricted it though, but I was looking at 48.26 and noticing that, the numbers here for the fleet are lower. So I'm thinking that this isn't showing 3 and Y, and it looks to be, I don't remember restricting it, but it looks restricted to just X and S, if I had to say. And Ruby had 19 software updates in 2020. 77 lifetime, but 19 in 2020. I did a little earlier, actually, physically add them up. If we look, and you can't see on the chart here, but when I look down, I remember we had such a dry spell in January and February last year after the stuff that came out at the end of 2019. So at the very beginning of 2020, it started off really slow. It's like, God, we haven't had a software update in forever. And then they started rolling out pretty regular, usually a couple of months, something like that, every 3 to 4 weeks. Ruby is at 2020.48.26. She has not gotten .30 yet, but again, this just speaks to how efficient Tesla is at rolling out both major changes and minor bug fixes to the fleet. And Ruby's temperature efficiency chart, like I said, it was very similar to Jules, except that her efficiency is a little higher in the 70 to 80 degrees, whereas I believe I said that Jules seemed to be most efficient at, was either 75 to 80 or 80 to 85. Part of this is that Ruby has, and this is a lifetime chart here, but Ruby has, close to 75,000 miles and Jules has close to 5,000 miles. So it's not exactly comparing apples and oranges here. I did not do the chart for just 2020, although I could have. And the cars are efficient when it's not particularly cold. I think Ruby's chart looks a little more even keel between, a little more in the center, and Jules's look just a little bit more toward the higher temperatures. And like I said, it's only 5,000 miles, and I did not do a chart for just Ruby for this year, so I wouldn't put too much stock in that. We all know we're not going to have great efficiency when the cars are particularly cold, okay? And we're talking at temperatures something below 40, something below 30, okay? And I promised to show you a comparable calendar for Ruby for December. And you can see that I didn't drive on Saturday the 5th or Sunday the 26th or Tuesday the 29th. And these were days Don and I went somewhere, and this was a Whole Foods run where Don drove us. He's asked me, which car do you want to take? I don't know why there's not any data for the 31st, because I took Ruby out today. I don't know. That's a little odd. Once or twice a year, I'll have to reboot the car to reestablish data logging with TeslaFi. That's possible for the 31st. And once you've missed the data as it's created, there's no way to get it back. So I would say I'll go back and check on TeslaFi. If there's really no data logged for the 31st, then I'm probably going to want to reboot the car before I go out for my next drive. But I believe I can speak to Ruby on the app right now. So typically those go hand in hand. But there were 121 drives for 632 miles at 451 watt hours per mile, because it is December and it is colder. And you can see the average temperature for Ruby's month of December was 48.82. And I did supercharge that one time over at the Cary Supercharger on my way home from the doctor's office earlier this month. So, well, there you have it. I hope you enjoyed the TeslaFi year-end review for Jules and Ruby.
So we've got our final energy bill for 2020 just a couple days ago, and I went on and put that into the spreadsheet. So we now have a full 12 months of power bills from Duke Energy for our home electricity. Remember now, we are 100% electricity, all electric home. We have no other energy source, just the electricity. So electricity is used for heating our water, heating our home, cooling our home, cooking, and of course, charging our electric cars. So you can really see that 2020, the COVID-19 was a serious impact on our energy usage. The bill went down on average from about $227 in 2019 to $191 in 2020. And that average, of course, is mostly due to the fact that we weren't charging the car as much at home as we had in the past. Marianne, when she was taking Johnny to school every day, was making doing about 100 miles a day, approximately 2,500 miles per month. Well, we're way down from that now. We're literally doing less than 600 miles a month now between the two of our cars on average. But anyway, so our bills have gone down. The time of use savings, of course, is a little less. In this case, it's fallen quite a bit from $37 a month in 2019 down to just $21.86 a month on average time of use savings. But the cost per day has went down from $7.48 in 19 to $5.92 in 2020. And there you can see the average kilowatt, total kilowatts used. That's both shoulder peak and off peak. In 2020 was only 1,889 kilowatt hours, whereas in both 2019 it was 2305, and in 2018 it was 2454. So you can see we've fallen from the mid 70s kilowatt hours per day down to as little as 62 kilowatt hours per day. If you notice that, though, we have increased our peak usage. We've gone up from approximately 120 kilowatt hours per month peak to 137 kilowatt hours peak. And that's because all three of us are home all the time now. Johnny is getting up and doing remote education here at home. So we basically are having to use more of our devices, and we're heating the house or cooling the house during hours that we may not have been when Marianne and Johnny were not home. It was just me. The shoulder has gone up a little bit, and of course the big difference is the off-peak. The off-peak has fallen from 2,000 kilowatt hours on average per month to 1,543 kilowatt hours per month. And again, that difference over the month is because we're not charging the electric cars as much as we were in the last couple of years. Well, we added Jules to our family last July 19th. And so the first, 6 months of the year, we don't have any data because we didn't have Jules. But starting in July, for the rest of the year, we show how many miles per month, which is the blue bars, and then how many kilowatt hours we use to charge Jules at home on our Tesla wall connector charger that we paid for the electricity for here. And so you can see that the September the mileage was nearly 2,500 miles, but yet the charging was very, very low, only 250 kilowatt hours or something like that. And that was because I supercharged on my trip out to Cape Girardeau, Missouri and back. So that's why the blue bars, the mileage is so high, yet the energy use for Jules is so low. Well, for Ruby, we started off as a typical year there in January and February. Marianne was doing her typical mileage in this case, between 1,500 and 2,000 miles in January and February. And we were charging, as you can see, approximately 600 kilowatt hours or so at home in January and February. And then the middle of March comes along, and of course, the schools shut down because of COVID-19. So obviously, the mileage is greatly reduced in March, and obviously the charging that goes along with it. And then you can just simply see the rest of the year, very low mileage each month, and very low energy use on Ruby. I think the average for Ruby was something like 610 miles per month for 2020.